From the All Indiana Podcast Network, this is the News 8 Daily 8.
Now, the latest news.
Kylie Conway has the latest news. The top headlines. News you can use.
Please stand by.
Sponsored by LCS Heating and Cooling. Now, here's Wish TV's Kylie Conway.
Hi, this is Kylie Conway, and this is the News 8 Daily 8 for Thursday, March 11th. It's a soggy and dreary day out there. Forecast 8 team says we're going to have several rounds of rain today. Even a few thunderstorms are possible this afternoon. Staying warm, though, with highs in the mid-60s. And today does mark 1 year since the coronavirus shut down much of the nation. It's been 365 days since we saw the beginnings of empty streets and restaurants, closed businesses. On March 11th, 2020, the World Health Organization declared COVID-19 a pandemic. Then President Trump announced a travel ban from Europe. Tonight, President Biden will speak to the nation to remember the lives lost and the sacrifices made. He'll be reflecting on the last year as we've navigated the pandemic, but he says he'll also look to the future.
I'm going to talk about what comes next. I'm going to launch the next phase of the COVID response and explain what we will do as a government and what we will ask of the American people.
Over the last year, 12,350 people have died in Indiana due to the coronavirus. The first reported death was Roberta Shelton on March 16th. At that time, just 24 cases had been reported in the state. Now, nearly 670,000 Hoosiers have had a positive test for COVID-19. Staff at IU Health say we are heading in the right direction, but are urging caution as they look back on the last year.
We cried with our patients and their loved ones, and we also cheered and rejoiced with those who triumphed. And here we are, 1 year later.
I know this whole year has been ridiculously challenging, but we are finally winning the battle.
The vaccines have been a game changer. Combine that with the seasonal decrease in infections we're seeing, really give us a good chance here.
As of this morning, almost 33 million people have been vaccinated. That's according to the CDC. Of that number, nearly 745,000 are Hoosiers. The agency says the U.S. is currently administering more than 2 million shots a day. We will carry the president's address live tonight on Wish TV, so keep that in mind if you'd like to see that live. This morning, the White House says stimulus checks will start going out before the end of the month now that the House has approved a $1.9 trillion coronavirus relief bill. President Biden says he'll sign the bill tomorrow. The vote was almost straight down party lines with no Republican support in either chamber.
It showers money on special interests, but spends less than 9% on actually defeating the virus.
I think this is actually one of the worst pieces of legislation I've seen pass here in the time I've been in the Senate.
Democratic leaders praised the bill as a critical step in surviving the pandemic.
This is a momentous day in the history of our country because we have passed historic, consequential, and transformative legislation.
The White House is preparing a further push now that the bill is passed, with the president and vice president set to travel across the country to tout its benefits with the goal of making some of the provisions permanent. And the door is opening wider for teachers and school staff to get vaccinated. Starting Monday, those work groups are eligible through Indiana's health department, regardless of age. The Indiana State Teachers Association is praising the state's expansion.
We believe that getting educators vaccinated so that we can get all of our students back into the classroom and get that process back to a little bit more normal is going to be what's best for the students and their families.
Federal authorities directed Indiana to open eligibility to teachers just like surrounding states did. Previously, state health officials said they used data to decide who's most at risk. And today, we'll hear the newest information on the COVID crisis in Indianapolis and Marion County. Mayor Joe Hogsett and the county's health department director are detailing the most recent data beginning at 9:30 this morning. If you're listening to it after 9:30 this morning here on the podcast, then you can find that at wishtv.com. And now to a rebirth of a program that lets some at-risk Central American children live in the United States. The Trump administration had ended the Central American Minors Program in 2017. It allows anyone under 21 years old with parents legally living in the U.S. to cross the border. The program applies to people who failed to qualify for refugee protections but are still at risk of harm. The White House is starting the program again but says the border is still closed.
Going forward, we will continue to look for ways to provide legal avenues in the region for people needing protection while we continue to enforce our laws.
According to Customs and Border Protection, the number of families and children at the border increased by 100% between January and February. Game day times 2 for IU. Both the men and women's teams tip off Big Ten tournament play at about the same time, just blocks apart. The men's team needs a deep run through the conference tourney to have any chance at an NCAA bid. First opponent is Rutgers. If the Hoosiers win, they'll play Illinois tomorrow. IU goes in with no momentum. They've lost their last 5 straight. The Hoosier women doing much better. They are the number 2 seed in the conference tournament and in the top 10 in the national polls. They play Michigan State tonight in Bankers Life Fieldhouse at about the same time the men are tipping off a few blocks away at Lucas Oil Stadium. Tip-off is at 6:30 tonight. The Butler Bulldogs are moving on to the Big East Conference quarterfinals after a thrilling overtime victory last night. Xavier had a 19-point lead at halftime. The Bulldogs surged in the second half to force overtime. Xavier had them by 1 when Chuck Harris hit a 3 to take the lead.
The locker room was full of excitement. Obviously, a comeback win like that against your rival team is special, so we definitely cherished it in the locker room for a few seconds here. I think going into halftime, we was only down 14. We just kept preaching one stop at a time, one possession at a time, so we got back in it.
Final score was 70-69. Next up, Butler plays Creighton. Tip-off is at 6 o'clock tonight. A new accuser has come forward with claims against Governor Andrew Cuomo of New York. The Times Union of Albany, New York reports that a female aide to Cuomo says that Cuomo aggressively groped her in the governor's mansion. The newspaper is not naming the woman and says the reporting is based on an unidentified source with direct knowledge of the woman's claims. Times Union reports that the woman alleges Cuomo asked her to come to the mansion to help with a cell phone and then groped her. Through a spokesperson, Governor Cuomo said he has never done anything like this. At least 6 women have now accused Cuomo of inappropriate behavior. The former Minneapolis police officer accused of killing George Floyd could face a new charge. The lawyers for Derek Chauvin wanted the Minnesota Supreme Court to review a decision about a potential charge of third-degree murder, but the court rejected that request yesterday. Now it's up to the judge overseeing Chauvin's trial to decide if that charge should be added. In this week's jury selection, attorneys did approve 2 more jury members. They're both men. 5 jurors are seated so far. The lawyer representing George Floyd's family says they are watching this selection process closely.
And so it's very important to the whole process that we have a fair and impartial jury who can respect George Floyd's life just as well as the police officer.
The trial still needs 9 more jurors, including 2 alternates.
Searching for a romantic summer getaway? Escape with Rich Girl Summer, the new Audible original from Lily Chu. The exquisitely talented Philippa Sue, returning to narrate her 5th Lily Chu title. This time, Philippa is joined by her real-life husband, Stephen Pasquale. Set in Toronto's wealthy cottage country, aka the Hamptons of Canada, Rich Girl Summer follows the story of Valerie, a down-on-her-luck event planner posing as a socialite's long-lost daughter, while piecing together the secrets surrounding a mysterious family and falling deeper and deeper in love with the impossibly hard-to-read and infuriatingly handsome family assistant, Nico. Caught between pretending to belong and unexpectedly finding where she truly fits in, Valerie learns her summer is about to get far more complicated than she ever planned. She's in over her head and head over heels. Listen to Rich Girl Summer now on Audible. Go to audible.com/richgirlsummer.
The Indiana Black Legislative Caucus is wrapping up its call to action days today. The group's chair, State Representative Robin Shackelford, plans to speak this morning at 11. She'll discuss the support the group has gotten from across the state. During the call to action days, the caucus asked people to show their support for implicit bias training for lawmakers and reprimands for some after heated debates at the State House in February. The caucus also asked people to voice their concerns about legislation in the State House. Concern is growing this morning that millions of dollars could be cut from mental health and addiction services in Indiana. The organization Mental Health America of Indiana is pleading with state lawmakers. Brandon George is the group's vice president. He's calling attention to proposed budget cuts of $26 million over the next 2 years. George says now is not the time to reduce funding for these services.
We all want to get people back to work. We want to open the economy back up. We want to do all these things, and those are really important. But without giving people the mental health help that they need, it's going to set us back a ways.
The organization has issued an action alert calling on people to ask their representatives to not cut the funding at all. The proposal passed in the Indiana House of Representatives and now goes to the State Senate Appropriations Committee. And today there will be talks of making a $15.5 million sports complex in Brownsburg a reality. Town council members will discuss talking about a bond to cover construction. It is just the planning stage. Staff is working with consultants and community members to identify park amenities. This project was first approved by the town council in December. The plan is to purchase the land from the Brownsburg Community School Corporation. The goal is to address key recreation priorities in the northern part of the community. And tonight's meeting is just one of 3 required readings before the final vote. Katie Wisely reports.
106 acres, 6 baseball fields, 6 softball diamonds, a new community park, plus 40 acres of other facilities.
A lot of their fields and stuff are outdated.
It would be 1.5 miles north of I-74 and 2.5 miles west of Eagle Creek Reservoir.
It's going to be huge for, a thriving and upcoming community to be able to keep evolving.
The town is responsible for developing the fields, which will be leased to Brownsburg Little League Baseball and Brownsburg Girls Softball League. Parent Eric Foist says not only is the project convenient, but brings revenue to the town of $26,000.
I have a 6-year-old daughter who was in the BGSL last year. There's tons of parents who, will have kids in a sport out here, and then they have to, rush out to go up to Grand Park in Westfield. So now I think you would be able to keep a lot of your West Side community in a, more of a central location.
This is a picture of Phase 1 in the planning stage and a look at some of the fields. Phase 2 includes an open space for a variety of field sports, a playground, and a multi-purpose building.
This isn't just, spending money. This is an investment.
This is the master plan, which was created using survey data provided by residents.
It should be beneficial as long as, it's ran as such.
Funding has not been approved by town council, but full design is underway. 60% will be completed by the end of the month and full design by April. Bidding for the project could come in May. Now the big question, are all council members on board?
Again, that was Katie Wisely reporting. She also reports that the town of Brownsburg says this is not a done deal by any means. They are still accepting comment forms after tonight's meeting. The town community engagement manager says, based on comments on social media, people are most supportive of the project. The second reading will be on March 25th. If funding and bids are approved, construction will take 18 months, and it would be ready by the spring of the 2024 season. Today begins an expansion of COVID-19 testing at Indianapolis International Airport. JFI Medical says travelers can now get tested and get the results within 24 hours. The testing originally opened for just airport employees. JFI says there are 2 different styles of the test. One is $95, the other is $135, or you can choose both for $200. The testing site is right behind Carousel 2 in the baggage claim area.
I think that's incredible. I think that would be a great service for everybody that's traveling. Having it right here at the airport would be absolutely make it a lot easier to get tested and make sure that you are comfortable with where you're at.
Airport officials say testing will run from 4 to 8 in the morning and 2 to 8 p.m. on Mondays, Thursdays, Fridays, and Sundays, or as needed. Pre-registration is required. More Indianapolis police officers are getting crisis training aimed at calming down a crisis before it turns violent. It's part of a national program called ICAT, which stands for Integrating Communication, Assessment, and Tactics. We were there yesterday as officers went through a scenario of a man who was upset, hadn't taken necessary medication, and was armed with a baseball bat. The goal is to teach officers how to get someone in that kind of situation to safely surrender and get them help, instead of making demands and using force for noncompliance. Chuck Wexler developed the principal ideas behind the program. He believes it could help prevent police shootings, but also cautions that not all situations are the same.
So this doesn't mean you use this strategy in every use of force case, but in the ones that don't involve firearms, especially when people are in crisis.
Wexler tells us that a police department in Louisville, Kentucky is using the same training and seeing fewer injuries to officers and suspects. To business headlines now, more people are applying to college this year. And with students applying to more schools, admissions officers struggle to predict who will actually accept their offers. There are mathematical models to predict which admitted students might accept their offers and enroll as freshmen are proving useless because the coronavirus pandemic threw most traditional elements of the admissions process, campus visits, standardized tests, essays about extracurricular schedules, all into disarray. Applications submitted via the Common App, which is used by more than 900 schools, rose by 11% nationwide through March 1st. But the number of applicants increased by just 2.4%, meaning nearly the same number of students are casting a wider net. The new stimulus package saves 13,000 jobs at American Airlines. The company had been planning to furlough the workers on April 1st. Airlines got a $15 billion boost and an extension of the payroll support program. The global semiconductor shortage is set to worsen if the supply chain dries up at its source, and that appears to be happening quite literally in Taiwan. Nikkei Asia reports the chip foundry for the world is suffering from the worst drought in decades on the island. Chip production requires a massive amount of water. The computer chip shortage is leading to a slowdown of tech products and even car production. Facebook is seeking to dismiss antitrust suits, saying it hasn't harmed consumers. The Wall Street Journal says the action marks its first legal salvo since the FTC and 46 states sued the company in December. A continuing problem among small business owners is being unable to fill open positions. About 40% of small businesses say they're having trouble finding enough qualified workers. Overall, business owners expecting better business conditions over the next 6 months remains low at 19%. And we end on a high note right now. Today, there are free Girl Scout cookies for first responders. The drive-through cookie giveaway is a celebration of the founding of the Girl Scouts 109 years ago this week. It's part of Operation Cookie Drop. The cookies are from the Girl Scouts, of course, and then there's going to be milk from Prairie Farms. Cookie Drop is a council-wide service project to support our local military service members and veterans and first responders. Last year, more than 66,000 packages of Girl Scout cookies were donated to Operation Cookie Drop. You can pick them up from 2 to 4 p.m. this afternoon at Camp Delwood. That address is 7201 Girl Scout Lane, Indianapolis. This has been your News 8 Daily 8 for Wish TV. I'm Kylie Conway, online at wishtv.com, and follow us on Facebook when you search Wish TV.
The News 8 Daily 8 is sponsored by LCS Heating and Cooling.
Be sure to like and subscribe to this podcast.
The News 8 Daily 8 with Kylie Conway. And be sure to discover even more great podcasts now at allindianapodcastnetwork.com.